wait, it's still muted.
Hello.
No, flashing is muted.
Self. Am I in frame? Am I in frame? Can you tell? Well, I just want to know if the camera's pointing at me or not.
Oh, no, you need to tilt it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Hello. Just gonna move my computer. Okay. Okay, I'm still going to continue adjusting things. Sorry. I have a few things I have to say at the beginning of our meetings. Those of you who don't know, we are sponsored by a group called Techlahoma. And as you can see by this boilerplate text in front of me, what is Techlahoma? Techlahoma is a nonprofit volunteer-run organization that puts on 33 groups, 2 conferences here in Oklahoma, and it sponsors free local events just like this one. Techlahoma is who provides the money for our food. And by the way, if you want more and better food, you just have to make sure you RSVP on our meetup.com page, because that's what determines our budget. Techlahoma does all this to support the grassroots tech community in Oklahoma. It's a really great organization. You can find out more at techlahoma.org. Oh, too high. Just got to see my hair. Also, coming up in May is a conference. Is it going to be here at 36 again? Do you know? 200 OK?
Oh, no, it's at the library.
Oh, that's right. Okay, it's going to be in the Greddington. Yes. So 200ok.us, 200ok conference happens here on May 18th. They are looking for sponsors. If you or your company will be interested in advertising and supporting Techlahoma, you can find out more at 200ok.us and click sponsors. Tickets are on sale now. Get yours early because they will sell out. And ticket sale proceeds go straight back to Techlahoma to support other programs like this fabulous meetup that you're sitting in right now. And finally, in case you didn't notice the name of the building when you were walking in, this is 36 Degrees North. If you like this meetup and what we do, 36 Degrees North donates this space for us to meet every month. And they also offer free workshops, co-working. They have desks, office space, and you can get that for a monthly fee. So if you're trying to start a business and you want nice, slick, professional office space, but you don't want to actually rent a building, 36 Degrees North gives you those options. They have conference rooms, all kinds of really great stuff. You can have your mail sent here and feel very fancy. And if you want to know more, you can find out more at the front desk right behind you. Finally, if you're interested in supporting Techlahoma, you can visit donate.techlahoma.org/membership. They also do have a store, which I believe is just techlahoma.org/store. They have t-shirts, mugs, tote bags, all that kind of stuff. And it is a 501c3 nonprofit, so anything that you donate can be written off on your taxes, which is really exciting for the adults in the room. There we go. So tonight we're going to learn how to make a video game from scratch without actually writing a single line of code. Did anyone bother to install Construct3? Okay. So there might be some slight difference visually between what I'm showing you and what's actually on your program. So if there's like a button that's not in the right spot and you can't find it, just let me know and we'll get it sorted out. For those who don't know, Construct has been around for a while, and they just released Construct3, I think it was last year, and it's entirely available on your browser, which means you don't have to download anything, you don't have to install anything, and you can create games from scratch. You do have to have Chrome as your browser. It's the only browser it supports right now. Also available is Construct2, which you can find at Sira, SCIRRA.com/Construct2. The free version of Construct2 has a few more features than the free version of Construct3, which is the only reason I'd kind of recommend it. Plus, personally, I just like having things installed on my laptop and contained there. But for what we're doing tonight, the free version of Construct3 will be just fine. If you're interested in getting an actual license, I think Construct2 is $150, and that's all time. You just pay once and it's yours. And with Construct3, it's like $99 a year, which you might want to consider if you really start getting into making games on a regular basis. So how many people are actually going to try to follow along tonight? Yeah, pretty much everyone. Good. So point your browser to, oh wait, no, first thing, I almost forgot. On your desktop, go ahead and just make an empty folder. Just make a new folder on your desktop. Boop. Folder. And I'm just going to call it my first game. And if you don't already, just a good habit to get into when you're making games, don't put spaces in things. So it's called my first game, and it's all one word, and that's done intentionally. And you notice the first letter of every word is capitalized, which is called camel case, if you don't know. This happens a lot in programming, and it's just a good practice to get into. It's called camel case because it looks like humps. So now that you have your blank folder, head back into Chrome and visit construct.net. And you can register. And if you do that, you actually unlock a few extra features, even if you're just using the free version. It lets you put more events into your game. We actually don't need that for what we're doing tonight, but if you want to do it, go ahead. Is anyone just going to go ahead and register right now? So just, okay, I'll keep going. Please stop me at any point if I'm like running too fast. All right, and as you might imagine, you just click this big red Get Started button. And it'll show you this free trial page. And then you go to Launch Construct3. You'd think that was the last step, not quite. And they have some kind of example projects here, like a puzzle game, a shooter, something that looks a little bit like Kirby or Kiwi Craze. Anyone remember that? Okay, so new project. Go ahead and click that. And I'm just going to call it my game. You can call it whatever you want. Oh, probably should have sorted that out. Yeah, you will need Wi-Fi. That's pretty important for tonight. Should have written that down on my plan. This stream is not sponsored by Diet Coke, but ooh, do I love it. Just for the taste of it. Okay. Are we sorted with the Wi-Fi? Yep. All right. Okay, so on your new project, you call it whatever you wish. I'm going to call it my game. From here on out, I would ask that you try to stick as close as you can to what I'm doing, just because that'll cut down on possible mistakes later. On your preset, you're going to choose retro style. And for your viewport size, this is kind of strange. You're going to set 640 by 384. Oops. 384. Orientations, you don't have to change that. Optimize for pixel art, that's fine. So again, that's 640 by 384, retro style. Go ahead and hit create. And you're going to see this white square pop up. This is called your layout. You might also think of it as your canvas. And it's probably hard to make out on the projector here, but like this little dotted line right here, this represents the size of the actual window of your game. So this is the view that the player sees. So like when the window pops up, it's going to be 640 pixels wide by 384 pixels tall. And in fact, if you want to, you can even click this play button up here. And you already have a functional game, technically. There's just nothing in it. It's just a white square. And by the way, when you hit play, it's just going to open up a new Chrome window. And if you want, when we're done, you can even export this to an HTML5 file that you could upload to itch.io or something like that and share the game with your friends, which is pretty fun. Okay, so over here is your project pane. This is where everything that you put in your game goes. If you've ever messed with any game engine at all, it should look pretty familiar. We go ahead and pardon, click on My Game right here. Oh, actually, is that right? Where is it? Okay, click on Layout 1. Right over here, you see the size attribute. This is the properties window, so whatever you have selected, you'll see its properties here on the left. And under size, it's 1280 by 768. That's bigger than we want. We're going to go ahead and keep it at 1280, but change 768 to 384. And if you click this little drop-down arrow, you can edit them individually. Not that we really need to do that. And you'll notice that now it's this long, skinny rectangle, and so this white space represents like our entire game world, whereas the dotted line is just one screen of that world. So before, it was much larger than what we needed for tonight. So we're going to make a small 2D Mario-esque kind of game tonight. And since we're already here, you should still have Layout 1 selected. Go ahead and click this Show Grid and Snap to Grid, because we're going to need that later. And just make note of this right here. 32 by 32 is the size of the grid, so that's 32 pixels by 32 pixel squares. That's what each one of these is. And you'll see why that's important in just a minute. So is anyone lagging behind? Anyone lost? Okay. Now we just need to have some stuff to actually put in here. So we're actually going to leave Construct3. And since you're in Chrome, you can just hit Control-T to open a new tab. And you're going to go to a website called piskelapp.com, Piskelapp.com. And if you've never used this, or you've never been around me for more than 5 minutes, I can tell you this is like one of my favorite little 2D art tools on the internet. Completely free. You can use it to create sprites, which are just 2D images that build up basically any 2D game. And you can see how sophisticated it is or how simple it is in some of these examples. You have this kind of neat little panda bear animation. There's good old Mega Man, this jumping llama. And right here, this Stormtrooper mask, right here, it almost looks photorealistic, but if you click in on it, you'll actually open up the editor, and you can see all the individual pixels that were put in here. So someone put a lot of work into this. So you can see it's actually a bunch of pixels, even though from a distance it looks pretty realistic. Kind of like I said before with Construct, if you want to go ahead and create an account, you can go ahead and do that right now. It just ties in with your Google account, I think. But what is the advantage of that is you get to save all of your sprites into a gallery online, so you can access them later and edit them. You won't have to worry about trying to download them or anything like that. If you don't want to mess with that tonight, you could also just hit the Create Sprite button. Does anyone want to go ahead and make an account who hasn't already? All right, go ahead. And while he's doing that, here's my gallery. There's me. You're actually seeing a preview of some of the stuff we're going to make. These are some really dopey sprites that I've made. This is Morio, not to be confused with Mario. Got this kind of lava tile here. Here's some very simple Mario-esque tiles that can be used to build a game world. A little flashing laser beam. I'm really proud of this guy. So this is the kind of stuff you can make with this, and if you have more artistic talent than I do, you can make some really sophisticated stuff. Okay, so everybody all set? All right. So go ahead and click Create Sprite. And we are going to make the quickest, fastest, most like cheatery game character that we can. And so first thing we're going to do is just pick a nice heroic color for him. So down here on the left, this is your color swatches. Go ahead and click that black square. And I don't know why I've been picking a very purple grimace-like color. And if you're familiar with Photoshop or even Paint or anything like that, a lot of the tools that you see should be pretty familiar. And just grab your circle tool here. And maybe a little bit more than halfway up. Oh, I should point out, this grid right here, if I click this resize button, you'll see that it's actually 32 pixels wide by 32 pixels tall. So this big giant square is the same size as one of those tiny little squares in Construct. So a little bit more than halfway up, go ahead and just draw a circle that fills the whole width of the screen and goes all the way to the bottom. In fact, you can even make it go a little bit off the bottom if you want. Then grab your bucket fill tool, which you can just press the B button on your keyboard, or you can click. Go ahead and fill that with purple, or whatever color you picked. And now the next thing we're going to do is actually make a new layer. So this supports layers just like Photoshop. So here in this layers pane, click this little pencil. We'll rename the layer that we're on to body. And then click the plus to add a layer. So that's going to put a layer on top of the one that we're currently looking at. And you notice that the color changed, and you can kind of see the transparency back here, the little checkerboard pattern. That's just to let you know that you're now on a new layer. So if I start drawing like this, in my preview window over here, it looks like one solid image, but really it's two different layers. So like if I shut off all the other layers, that's what I've drawn. And I don't want this, I'm gonna hit Control Z to undo it. It's a handy shortcut. We're gonna make another circle, start a little bit above this guy, and just drag it out until it's, try to keep it exactly 3 pixels from the bottom of the screen, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Fill that in with purple. And now we're going to draw some eyes for him. So if you click your little purple color swatch here and just drag up to the left to get a white color, make some eyes that are just a little bit to the right of the center. So that way it'll look like he's facing to the right. Yeah, those are not even, but I'm going to stick with it. And use your bucket fill. Again, you can press B on the keyboard to just fill those in. Go ahead and click your color swatch to get some black. Your pen tool is up here, or you can click the letter P. Just draw some eyeballs. Again, if you put them on the right side, this nice illusion that he's facing to the right. And a little smiley face. Yay. All right. This is the roundest one I've made so far. All right, now we're gonna do a really simple, easy animation trick. And it almost feels like cheating. So Piskel supports animation. And so it's very easy to create new animations. And this little window over here is actually a frame of animation. And I don't know why you only see the layer that you're currently in, but that's just the way it works. But if you want to make an animation very quickly, very easily, there's a handy button right here. Duplicate this frame. Go ahead and click that. Now we have 2 identical frames. And with the second frame selected, grab this little hand tool, the move tool, which you can also just hit M on your keyboard. And this will move the entire layer wherever you want it to go. So if I grab this layer, since I'm in the head layer right now, which I forgot to rename, head, and drag it down exactly 1 pixel. Now over here you see it started to move, because this always cycles through every frame of animation that you have. Now if I duplicate the second frame it will automatically select a third frame for me, and I'll drag it down 1 pixel again. Duplicate that frame again, drag it down 1 more pixel. And now it's starting to look kind of like this little animated jelly blob, but it's kind of bouncing every time it gets to the bottom. It's bouncing straight back up to the top. So we're going to smooth it out a little bit by clicking our duplicate button. Now we're going to drag it up 1 frame, duplicate again, and drag it up 1 frame. Now we have this nice, smooth, weird-looking jelly guy. And you'll remember our first frame of animation right here, it was 3 pixels from the bottom. Our last frame of animation, it's 2 pixels down. And so once it gets down to number 6 here, it just jumps back up to number 1. And now we have an animated game character that we can use. So is anyone still working on it? We're all caught up? I should have laid out at the beginning, by the way, we're not making Call of Duty tonight. I just hope you're all aware of that. So if you head over here to, if you have an account, you can click this save button and call it whatever you want, hero. And you can save it to your gallery. But if you click this mountain button right here, you can actually export it. Right here in the export settings, you can change the scale. You see right now the resolution is 32 pixels by 32. If I were to scale that up to 2 times, now it's 64 by 64, and so on and so on. It's actually pretty handy if you want to use some pixel art in a high definition game, so it'll still keep that chunky pixel look. But we'll just keep it at scale of 1. And right here, you have a PNG option to export, and it says sprite sheet layout options. You don't have to worry about that right now. You can even export things as GIFs. Some people use Piskel to just make movies and things like that. But we're going to export as a PNG, and all the default settings are just fine. So 64 by 96, 6 frames, 2 columns, 3 rows. Go ahead and download that to the folder that you just created on your desktop. And we'll call it something like hero is fine. And now, since we made this nice kind of cheating version of animation for our hero, we're going to do exactly the same thing for the bad guy. And it's so easy to do, I'm actually going to delete all 5 of these frames of animation and just keep the first one. So if you click this trash can, they're just going to start moving up until they're all gone. And the first thing we want to do is change the color so we don't get confused. Really cool tool right here. It's paint all pixels of the same color. It's right next to your bucket tool, or you press A on the keyboard. And you notice there are some tooltips right there where if you press Control, it'll apply to all layers. So grab another color down here, maybe like a menacing red. And if you hold down the Control key and just click anywhere in this purple, every square that was purple is now red. There's also a hotkey in there where you can make it so that applies to all frames of your animation too. And you notice every time we have a new color, it shows up in this color palette down here, so they won't get lost. Okay. So if our hero is going to be facing to the right most of the time, enemies are going to be facing to the left. So right over here we have transform tools. Transform in 2D games and 3D just refers to the position. So transforming could be just moving something left or right, or it could be flipping it vertically, which is what we're about to do. So this is the flip vertically tool, and you notice if you hold down Control, it will apply to all layers. So same thing, hold down the Control key, click your flip button here, and he turns around. Now, we want to make him a bad guy, and the universal easiest way to create a bad guy, grab your pen tool, grab some black, and give him some angry eyebrows. Instant bad guy. If you want, you could also like fill in his mouth like this. Maybe grab some white. Give him some fangs. Now he looks pretty evil. And he has this right here, these transform tools. Yeah, and then you'll hit Control and just click that button, and it should flip your entire image.
If you press it just normally, does it just flip the one layer?
Yeah, so like right, you're not really going to be able to tell because it's perfectly symmetrical, but like I'm only flipping the head layer right now. We all good? Okay. So we're going to animate him the same way we animated our other guy. Just by clicking this duplicate button, grabbing our move tool, move him down 1 pixel, and just repeat that process. And by the way, I did mention that this is kind of cheatery, but it's possible to actually make some sophisticated animations this way, where if you put, let's say, like all of your characters' limbs in different layers, like his legs are in a different layer, the arms are in a different layer, and you rotate those or move those around, that's actually a really common way of animating things. So once again, you should have 6 frames of animation. And while everyone's doing that, I should also point out that you could absolutely animate in the traditional way, which is where you're actually just changing the drawing in every frame. So like if I, whoop, not that color. If I grab some black and like make his eyebrows get a little bit longer. Oh, that's the wrong frame. So I can do much like more traditional animation techniques too, like just make those little eyebrows grow by changing them every frame. It takes longer, but you can make more intricate animations that way too. Bloop, 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 bloop. Control Z. Okay. All right, everybody good? All right, same thing. Export. PNG, you don't really have to change any of the settings yet. Go ahead and click download. And this is actually worth noting right here. You see this little, you know what, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's just name this Baddie. B-A-D-D-I-E for bad guy. And once you've got him saved, since we have a bad guy, we also want to make sure that he can be killed and that he gets all squished when our hero jumps on him. So once again, I know it's scary, but I'm going to delete every single frame of animation except for the first one. Blip, 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 blip. And I'm actually going to delete the head layer entirely. So this head layer over here, just click the X button. It'll go away. Grab your eraser and just kind of scoop out the top of this. Once you've done that, you can grab your bucket tool, and you'll notice down here in your color swatches, your secondary color is actually transparency right now. So if I right click on this with my bucket, it'll just fill it with transparency and it just goes away. And then just grab some black, and I'm going to make a couple of X's here. And bleh. This is only a single frame of animation, so we don't really have to do any more than that. Same as before, we're going to export that. You don't have to change any settings, just hit download. And we'll call this one Dead.
Does your frames per second matter? You had it on 12 frames per second.
Right.
Does that matter going into the construct?
Yeah, so here, let me undo all the things I've done. If only life were that easy. So you have this slider right here that changes your frames per second. And that's really just a preview to show you what this animation would look like if you played it at that speed. So I can drop it down to 5 frames per second. You know, I can jump it up to 24. And we're actually going to need to use that slider here in a minute. So now that we have bad guys, we have a good guy, we have a dead bad guy. We're going to make some background elements very quickly, and then we're actually going to dive into the game making portion. I'm just going to click Create Sprite again, so that'll open a new tab. And we're going to do this very quick and dirty, not spending a lot of time on this. Get your bucket fill, go to your color swatches, and find a brown color, kind of a dirt rock color. Preferably one that's kind of right here in the middle. And you can just go ahead and fill the entire canvas with that color. So you're just going to have a big brown box. Now after you've done that, go ahead and click on your color swatch again and find a color that's a little bit brighter, so you can just drag this circle up a little bit. And then you're going to use the stroke tool, which is L on your keyboard. And we're just going to draw a line that goes almost to the edge on the top here. We have this little 4-pixel square in the corner, just because it looks nice aesthetically. And then you're going to do another line down the side, again stopping 2 pixels from the edge. And all you're doing here, this is very simple 2D art, is you're just creating the illusion of depth and the illusion of highlights. So even here, if you see in this preview, we've done hardly anything, and it kind of looks like there is some sunlight shining down from the upper right portion of the screen. And to complete that effect, we actually need to have a shadow color as well. So if you click on your original color that we had before here in your palette, go over here to the color swatches, and now get a darker color, slide it down, and we're going to do the same thing but on the other edges of the square. Oh, I actually went down too far. It's a handy trick. If you press the O key on your keyboard, you can grab your little eyedropper to just grab one of the colors from your picture that you want to reuse, and then hit P to go back to your pen tool. So we could stop there, but we'll make something a little bit more interesting than that. Grab your highlight color, which is this lighter brown, and say we want to make this look like sandstone or maybe just like a wooden block. Just draw a couple of wavy lines from one side to the other. And one up here. And since this is highlight, if you want to create the illusion of depth, that means you have to have shadow. So grab your darker color, and just along the bottom edge of these little cracks you just made, just lightly put in this darker color. And try to follow it as closely as you can. This is going to be harder if you don't have a mouse right now, but and it doesn't need to be perfect tonight. If you all are interested, sometime we could talk about making actual tile sets that are designed to fit together so that it looks like one consistent pattern. That's a lot of fun. All right. So not the most brilliant piece of art, but it kind of looks like a piece of sandstone or maybe wood grain. You will notice, like, even right here, just this tiny little spot kind of stands out. It doesn't look right because I wasn't very exact right there. It's funny how quickly your eyes can pick up on that. All right. So now we have some ground for the character to run around on, but now we're going to make some little decorative items. We'll make a quick bush and a little cloud. And instead of creating a new sprite, we'll just go to Add New Frame. And you'll notice right now, this immediately starts blinking and getting really annoying. So we're going to change that by dragging this 12 FPS down to 0. So basically we're just telling it to stop animating so it doesn't annoy you anymore. And we'll just make a little bush. So go to your color swatch, get a green color of some kind, maybe kind of a brightish green. And not an exact science whatsoever. You're just going to make something that resembles a bush. You want to try to add little... This is going to be a terrible bush. Okay, and then you can just fill that in. Now grab, once you've done that, you've created kind of a simple outline like that. You can do exactly what we did before and grab a brighter color as a highlight. And if you just kind of go over the top edges, it makes it pop and it makes it look kind of like it's actually in a world with, you know, sunlight. You can even grab, you know, make some little protrusions in there. And just like we did before, you can grab your darker color, go to the color swatches, make it a little bit darker to add kind of a shadow effect. If you're really interested in sprite or pixel art and things like that, one of the easiest things you can do is just like go find a screenshot of Super Mario Brothers or something like that and just look at what they did and copy it. Of course, there's a million tutorials out there too. So it's starting to look a little bit like a bush. We're gonna add one more thing just for fun. Grab a nice bright color. I'm gonna get like a pink and just make little crosses. And once you've done that, you can grab a brighter color, or maybe even all the way up to white, and just put it in the middle of each cross, and now you have little flowers. So nice. And finally, we're going to make just a little cloud. So you're going to add a new frame again. This one is really easy. Grab a nice kind of sky blue color and just make a couple circles that overlap each other. You can grab your eraser and just erase everything that's inside. I like to imagine that at some point some actual pixel artist is going to watch this on YouTube and it's just screaming right now. And then go back to your color swatch and go all the way to the top left to grab some white. Fill that in. Go ahead and grab your blue color, and there's a couple things you can do if you wanted to make it look kind of fluffy and, you know, have little indentations and things like that. I like to go full Mario and just make it a happy cloud. And now we have a very basic little tile set that has some decorative tiles, and it also has some ground tiles. If you don't know what a tile map is, you're about to find out. All right, has everyone got all three done? Pretty good? Okay. Go ahead and go to your export button, your little mountain. Download that. And we're going to just call this tiles. Okay, now we have everything we need to actually start putting stuff into our game. By the way, if there's anyone here who doesn't care about art, is not interested in trying to make art yourself, which is perfectly valid. There's a lot of resources out there that let you download art assets, like Kenny assets. K-E-N-N-E-Y is a really big one. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. It also helps you get going a little bit faster, but I just wanted to show everyone this tool and how easy it is to use. So if you go back into your My Game Construct page, we can actually start adding some stuff to this. So we're going to go to the bottom right where your Layers tab is. I think that might be different in Construct 2. Go to your Layers tab, and if you just click on this, we're going to rename this to Background. So Layer 0 is now Background. And with this background layer selected, if you go to the Properties pane here, you'll see this background color. You just click in that square and go ahead and pick a nice sky blue color. At least that's my choice. If you want something else, you can pick that. just fill in the whole background for us. And now we're going to create a tile map. So you can double click basically anywhere in this window, or you can right click and say insert new object. And it's going to bring up this menu, and you will scroll down to general, to tile map, and go ahead and name it. We're going to call this one ground tiles. And once again, all one word, insert. You'll get this little targeting reticle and just put it somewhere in your layout. So right here, this is the default tile map that shows up whenever you insert a tile map. And if you've never heard of this concept before, it's basically you have all these little puzzle pieces that fit together, and that's what you use to build your levels. You're a little lost? Here, what is it? I know that program, it's a little different. All right, so double click anywhere in there, or you can right click. Scroll down to Okay, so this is just kind of a sample tile map, and you can see that each one of these squares is just like a piece of the world, and they're all designed so that they fit together perfectly, so that you have everything you need to make grasslands, desert, and the transitions between those things. You have a couple little decorative tiles here, which is basically everything that we did just a few minutes ago. But we don't need this sample one. So if you click the little folder right here, find the folder that's on your desktop, and get your tiles. There's our happy little tile map. And you remember before we had those 3 frames of animation, but what Piskel does when you export it is it puts all of those frames onto a single image file, and it puts them in order. So we did this block first, this one second, and this one third, so it just puts them like that. So this is called a tile map. And go ahead and close it. And this whole area is kind of highlighted in blue right now. If you go to where your layers tab is, down here at the bottom you'll find the tile map tab. Go ahead and click that. And here's your little tile map. And you'll notice that Construct has automatically divided all of these tiles. And over here in the properties, you can see that it thinks that the tile width is 32 and the tile height is 32, which is exactly what we did. So go ahead and select this little ground tile, then select the pencil, and you can actually paint your level onto your layout however you like it. So, kind of Mario style, I like to just start off with a flat area with a platform, maybe a little pit for them to jump over. In fact, maybe the stair steps up a little bit. Here's a really tricky platform down there, and kind of an area here off to the side. This is where, if you made it this far, you're a winner. Good job. So just go ahead and make some kind of level, and then if you're having any trouble, let me know. Otherwise, whenever you're done, maybe just put up your hand.
How did you get the ground tiles in the tile map?
Okay, so you select it over here on the right-hand side. Can you see Can you see this part?
No, the
Okay.
tile map tab is blank.
Okay. Select ground tiles. Do you see it over here in your project pane?
Yeah.
So click that, and then click tile map. Hopefully that'll pop it up. Still not there? Okay, so just start, like, draw some tiles until you have something that looks like a level. We're making a 2D game from scratch. Okay. All right, does everyone have something that looks like a level? You can always change it later. Okay. So now, once we've done this, we are going to go back to our Layers tab. And we're actually going to lock the background tab by clicking this little padlock right here. And then you'll right click in the layers area and hit add layer at top. And you'll name this layer characters. So the reason we locked that background layer is that if I didn't, even if I have this characters layer selected, if I click somewhere in here, it's going to select the tile map from the lower layer, because the tile map is the size of the entire level. So if I click anywhere on the level, it's going to think I'm trying to select the tile map, which I don't want. So we will lock the background. Make sure that you have your characters tab selected. And now I can click anywhere and I'm not going to accidentally select that. Okay. Now that we've done that, it's finally time to put some characters in our game. So somewhere over here on the left, you can double click or right click and hit insert new object. Scroll down to sprite. And once again, a sprite is just a 2D image that basically makes up everything in a 2D game. And you can name your sprite whatever you want. I'm going to name mine hero. Actually, I'm going to name it player. Click insert. And then when you click that, you'll get this little crosshairs and put it wherever you want. And if you really wanted to, you could actually just draw a character using the built-in tools. They don't work very well. They're not as nice as, Piskel or Photoshop or anything like that. But we already made some animations, so we don't need to worry about that. I'm going to clear it by hitting this little piece of paper here. And here where it says animation, you can just right-click and click Import Frames from Strip. So strip is just another word for what's usually called a sprite sheet. And just like our tile map, when we exported the animations for our other characters, it exported as these kind of grids of images. Yeah. Didn't get what? Let me see. Okay, so hopefully everyone is looking at this screen at this point. You click your hero sprite strip here, or sprite sheet, and you'll notice that there are 2 horizontal cells and 3 vertical cells, and you'll need to know that in just a second. So go ahead and hit open. It's going to ask you to import sprite strip. Number of horizontal cells, put in 2. Number of vertical cells, put in 3. So this is a very common thing in a lot of 2D game engines. This is how a lot of them process animations, is you have this one file with every frame of your animation in just one place. Go ahead and click import. And you'll have this blank 0 frame. This is just a weird thing that Construct does. You can delete that. So you can just click that and hit the delete key on your keyboard. It'll go away. And you might need to zoom in on your little character, which if you just hit Control and move your mouse wheel, or you can hit Control plus and minus. And if you click on each individual frame, you can see the differences in how he moves. So that's the little animation that we made before. And okay, let's go ahead and close this. And here's our little character right here. Well, you'll notice he won't actually sit on top of the ground. He's always going to go inside the ground. And the reason for that is we have to change something called the origin, which is basically what Construct thinks is the center point of the sprite. So grabbing your little guy, if you double click on him, this little crosshair button down here, it's pretty small. You'll see right there it's showing in the middle. And what we want to do is go over to this image points area, and you will right click, then go to quick assign, and then bottom. So what that's going to do is it's going to move the origin point exactly to the center bottom of the sprite, which is what we want for this guy. And the thing is, it's only going to do it for that one frame of animation. If I click to another one, you'll see that it's in the middle again. So if I go back to my 0 frame and I right click where it says origin, I can click apply to whole animation. So that'll move the origin to the bottom for every frame. Okay. Now if I X out of that, you'll see that now he snaps directly to the bottom edge, so I can put him right on the ground. Okay. How's everybody doing? Yeah. You have multiple files, and each file is a different frame of animation. Oh, go. Oh, delete that stuff. Okay. We got something. There it is. Okay. All right. Does everyone have a jelly guy on the ground at this point? I hope. All right. Click the play button. Oh, look at that. Wow, he moved for a second and then he stopped. And of course, you can't actually make him move around or anything, but you've got a little world there. It's all drawn out for you. So now we have to do some other things, right? Let's add movement. And this is going to be the easiest thing you've done so far. Select this character. And here on the left side, in the properties area, you will see a category here called behaviors. It says add edit. Click this behaviors link. Pops up this window. Click add new behavior. And just real quick, take a look at some of this stuff. We've got anchor, solid, we've got timers, scroll to, bullets, 8 directions, lots of different behaviors that you can immediately attach to any character in this game, and it's very easy to do, and you don't have to write any code, which is why Construct is so much fun. What you want is to scroll down to where it says movements and grab this one called platform. And you'll see the description right here, jump and run along platforms, solid. Go ahead and add that. And just close this dialog. Now click the play button. And he's going to fall right through the floor. And the reason for that is we never told Construct that this tile map that we made should be solid. But that's very easy to do too. So over here in your project view on the right, if you click ground tiles, you can add behaviors to this just like you can to that other character. So go over here to behaviors, click it. Click add new behavior, and up here on the right, solid. Solid, make the object impassable so other objects cannot move or fall through it. Sounds like what we want, right? Now if you click the play button, you can use your arrow keys to make it move around. And you can press up to make him jump. Super duper easy. Is anyone not doing that yet? Okay. But there's a couple things that are, yeah.
I'm doing it, but my character's stuck, so I have to redo my tile map.
Oh, we might actually fix that in a minute, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like yours is 2 off the ground, mine's just 1.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons for that kind of thing to happen. So he's got stuck on his platform here because it's only 1 square above. So look at some of the weird things that are happening. One, he's not animating. All that animation we did, it just went nowhere. He won't turn around when I move to the left. He's always facing to the right. Also, when I jump under this platform, there's pretty clearly a gap between the top of his head and that platform, but it looks like he's running into it. So we're going to change all of those things. Oh, one other thing, the camera doesn't follow me at all. And if I fall off the world, nothing happens. So we're going to change all those things, and it's going to not take that long. So it's not animating. That's really easy to fix. Click your character here in the editor. Just double click. And where it says animations here on the right, with our animation 1 selected, and you could rename that if you wanted to. You probably call it idle. That's a pretty common term. Under animation properties, make sure that loop is selected. And frankly, I think the animation is a little too slow. When we had it in Piskel, it was at 12 frames a second, so I'm going to set the speed to 12 also. Now, if we want to stop it so that he actually bumps into things with the top of his head, we have to change where Construct thinks he collides with things. Because as far as Construct is concerned, the top of this character is the top of this box. So that's why when he's jumping up, he stops whenever he gets right here. So to change that, all we have to do is go over here to this little triangle. We're going to edit the collision polygon. And you're going to move these little squares at the top down. And I'm not sure exactly, so for me, I'm going to move them down to where it says 8. So the y coordinate is 8. And you might want to just manually type that in the box. And you'll notice that the top of this little collision polygon is actually going through his head. This is a game design thing. This is actually something to keep in mind if you're making games. So if you imagine this box as this is where things collide with the character. If you've ever played like a shooting game, like a Contra, or I'm dating myself, but an old game where people are shooting at you, if the bullet actually touches your character, but it doesn't hurt you, that makes you feel really good. It's a psychological thing because you're like, oh, he just missed me. It just grazed me. Now, if I was really strict and I said, if this bullet touches you right here on the top, just barely touches you, you die, your immediate reaction while playing that game will just say, that's not fair. You cheated. The computer is lying to me. I obviously didn't get hit. The funny thing is it's actually the opposite if you're talking about where to collide with enemies. Because like when you collide with enemies, you want it to collide as many times as possible because it feels good to kill bad guys. So just like when we changed the origin before, we have to change this collision box for every frame of animation. So if you right click with this box right here, just hit apply to whole animation. Go ahead and close that. And okay, the next thing we need to do is make it so he turns around when you move to the left. And now we're going to use the next part of Construct3 that makes it really easy to make games without writing code. And that is the event sheet, which is this tab up here. And all this is basically just a series of if-then statements, if you know anything about code. But all that says is if this thing happens in the game, make this other thing happen. And real quick, before we can do that, we actually have to add one more thing to our game. So go back to the Layout 1 tab. And double-click anywhere you want. Just insert new object wherever you want. And scroll down to Input and do Keyboard. Basically, we have to put that in the game so Construct will let us use the keyboard for input. And you won't actually see it anywhere in your layout, but you can see it over here in the project pane. So now go back to our event sheet and click Add Event. And we're going to add an event for our player. So click him and then click Next. And we're going to say, I'm sorry, not for our player. I was wrong. Click back. We're going to add a keyboard event. And where it says key is down. Not key code is down, by the way. It has to be key is down. Click that and click Next. And then you click this box that says click to choose. And we're going to press the left arrow key. And it should automatically detect that you've done that. And click OK. Click Done. So now we've created a condition. And the condition is keyboard left is down. So we have to tell the game when the left arrow is down, make something happen. So we go to where it says Add Action. Click Player. Next. You can also double click to save some time. And where it says Appearance, it says Set Mirrored. Double click that. It says State Mirrored. Just leave it like that and click Done. So mirrored like it sounds means it's going to make him, it's going to reflect him horizontally. So it's going to make him flip horizontally. Now that we've done that, we have to make sure that the game knows when he starts moving to the right again, he needs to turn back around. So click Add Event here in the event sheet. Keyboard, once again. Key is down, not key code. Click to choose and click the right arrow key. Just click OK. Done. We're going to add action for the player. Go back down to Appearance, Set Mirrored. And this is a bizarre coding thing. If you've never encountered this before, you're going to set the state to not mirrored. And that just means the opposite of whatever mirrored is set to right now. So before he was mirrored, now he's going to be not mirrored. This happens all the time in code. And let's see. Oh, we're going to do one more thing. Is anyone not caught up yet?
Where was the set not mirrored?
So it's under appearance and it says set mirrored, and you're going to double click that, and then there's a toggle between mirrored and not mirrored. So now that we've done that, go back to your layout, and you'll remember that the camera wasn't following the player at all. So if you click on the player and go to behaviors, first of all, you'll notice right here where it says platform, these are all the things you can tweak for the way he moves around. So you can tweak how fast he goes, what his acceleration is, how high he jumps, what the gravity is. You can enable a double jump just by clicking that one box. But we're going to go down to behaviors. Click that, add a new behavior. Under general, scroll to. So the camera will automatically scroll to this character at all times. That is something that would take you a long time to do if you had to write it out by hand. So now click play. And you should have something that resembles a video game. All right, good, because we changed the collision. Now, there's some other things that we could talk about. We probably won't have time to get to them tonight. But for instance, like I can just go straight off the left and disappear. And because there's no block there, he's actually falling right now. He's probably like 100 feet under my computer at this point. The game still thinks he's there, so I can make the window move even though you don't see him anymore. Those are things that we can fix pretty easily, but we're not going to worry about it right now. Maybe if we have enough time. Okay, so has everyone got a character that moves? All right. By the way, if you're just wanting to like make a prototype of a game, you know, there's no reason you can't just make a square, a 32 by 32 square, and stick it in there. All right, so we've got a good guy, but now we need some bad guys to make this game a little bit more entertaining. So double click anywhere you want. And we're going to add a sprite, which we will call baddie or bad guy, whatever you want to call it. And click where you'd like that bad guy to be. And just like before, where it says animation 1 frames, right click in there, import frames from strip, find your baddie, click open. Number of horizontal cells is 2, number of vertical cells is 3. Import. This empty 0 frame you can delete. And now we're going to have to do a lot of the same stuff for this guy that we did for our other character. So highlight your 0 frame, click the little triangle, and we're going to adjust our collision box here. And like I said before, you actually want it to be really close to the top of his head because we want the player to feel like it's very easy for them to stomp on this guy. And then if you right click anywhere after you've done that, you can just hit apply to whole animation. And we have to change the origin again. This is going to be a little bit different though. So right click on origin, quick assign, and we're going to assign it to the bottom left. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. Then once you've done that, you can right click and apply to whole animation. And that's most of the setup we need to do for this guy. And I'll show you why we changed that origin point. That's so that he will line up perfectly with our boxes. Because otherwise, if we put it in the middle, he'd only line up in the middle of them. And we want to make sure that we put our enemies exactly where we want them. And now you can actually start putting them all over the level. There's a handy trick for scrolling around your level. If you just hold down the space bar, you can move it wherever you want. Now if you hold down the control key and click on your bad guy, and drag, you'll just instantly duplicate it. So you can put these guys wherever you want. Oops. I'm going to make a bunch. Okay. Oh, I actually forgot something too. When you have a sec, double click any one of your bad guys, and under animations, just make sure you set the loop option. Just click the loop option, and you can change the speed if you want. Okay, so you put some bad guys down, make sure the animation's looping, hit play. You want to test all the time, by the way, when you're making games. And so I've got some bad guys, they animate, but I can't do anything to them. In fact, I just walk right through them, nothing happens. They're also in front of my guy, which is kind of weird. That's something we'd probably want to change later. Right, so now we're going to use our event sheet again to set up some logic so that whenever we run into these guys, they die. So go to your event sheet. We're going to add an event to the bad guy. Oh, actually, no. We're going to add an event to the player. And you're going to go down to collisions to where it says on collision with another object. And it has this little green arrow. Click that. Next. It's going to say object. Click to choose. So choose the object we're thinking about. So whenever he collides with the bad guy, double click that. Click done. So now we've set up our condition. So when he collides with the bad guy, make something happen. We're going to add an action to the bad guy. And you just scroll down to where it says miscellaneous. Destroy. That means that the bad guy is just going to vanish. And destroy is a pretty common term in game development too. Click next. And now go ahead and click play. Okay, well, the bad guys disappear, but I just run right into him and he just disappears. It doesn't matter if I jump on top or if I just run straight into him. So we want to make sure that it only happens when I'm falling on them, Mario style. So go ahead and close your test window. And in this event where we have on collision with baddie, right click on that. And you're going to hit add another condition. And you're going to add another condition for a player. You're going to scroll down here to where it says platform. So these are conditions that have to do with movement. And you're going to select is falling. And click next. So now what it says is when you collide with a bad guy and you're falling at the same time, you make the bad guy disappear. Otherwise, you don't do anything. So if I play this, he's not dying. If I jump up through him, nothing happens. But if I land on him, he dies. So now we're starting to get somewhere, but it's not very appealing, right? He just disappears. Nothing really happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this more interesting by adding what they call juice. So this is something you'll hear about a lot in game design. You might also hear something called game feel. But juice is just the idea. It's something that makes the game more interesting. It's just a little bit of flair you can add that makes people more interested in your game. So an example would be like in Mario Brothers, when you're running in one direction and you turn around, Mario doesn't just stop and turn around. He actually has to like skid for a second and then he turns around. And that was way back in 1982. It's just this tiny little detail that makes the game seem more realistic and more interesting. So anytime you have an opportunity to add some juice, you should. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so our player bounces off the top of these guys whenever he lands on them. We're going to make the enemy get squished so that we get some feedback and it feels really good for the player. So make sure I'm not skipping anything here. Okay. So still on our event sheet, right here where it says baddie destroy, I'm just going to right click that and just delete it. And we're going to add an action to our player. And again, it's down here in platform. Way down here, it's called set vector Y. Click next. And we're going to say -400. So the vectors show up a lot in 2D games, and it's just direction and speed. That's all it is. If you've taken, a math class where you have a coordinate system with the X and Y coordinates, X goes left and right, Y goes up and down. One thing that's really weird in most game design is that in math class, the bottom for y is 0, and as you go up, it increases. In game design, it's the opposite way. And the reason for that is with your computer, the top left pixel is considered 0, 0. So when you move to the right, x is increasing. When you move down, y is increasing. So when we set our vector y to negative 400, we're actually telling the game to make him bounce up. So now that we've done that, we actually need to make sure that the squished enemy shows up. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't told Construct that that enemy exists yet. So go back to your layout and double click kind of anywhere you want. We're going to insert a new sprite. We'll call it Dead Baddie. And click insert and click somewhere outside of your level. Don't click inside your level. Just anywhere you want, out in that gray space, floating and alone. And this time we're not actually going to load an animation because we don't have an animation for this guy. So you can just click the folder up here, find your dead guy, and we do need to change the origin point for him. So you can just right click and quick assign to the bottom left. Because if we didn't do that, he wouldn't show up lined up with the bad guy when you killed him. It would show up like askew. And we don't have to worry about the collision because we're never going to collide with this guy. So once you have the origin set, just go ahead and click X, close that. We're going to go back to our event sheet. And in this event, so when the player lands on top of the bad guy, we're going to make him bounce up. Now we're going to add an action and say that the bad guy, and under miscellaneous, spawn another object. Spawn is another common game design term. It just means put this thing into the world. So click spawn another object, click next. Where it says object, click to choose, go ahead and click that, and we're going to spawn our dead bad guy. Click OK. Layer 0, image point 0, that's fine. That just means where this action happened. And now after that, we're going to add action. We're going to say baddie, scroll down to miscellaneous, destroy. Because otherwise the bad guy would just stay there and there'd be a squished bad guy for some reason at the same time. And you also want to make sure if you're destroying an object in a game, it should be pretty much the last thing you do. Because if we told it to destroy the bad guy first, and we have this action after that says now the bad guy should spawn a dead bad guy, the program is going to say, what are you talking about? Because I just destroyed that thing. I can't interact with that anymore. So if you're destroying objects, you should put it kind of close to the end. Now if you click play, ooh, that's a lot more fun. Look at this. Oh, that's a weird behavior. Huh. Of course, now the dead bodies just kind of stay there. They never go away. So we're going to change that real quick. Close that window. So we've destroyed this bad guy. Now we're going to add another action under the system category. So click that. Scroll all the way down to time. We're going to wait. Like that. 1 second is plenty of time. Click done. Then we're going to add one more action to the dead baddie. Go down to miscellaneous and destroy. So all told, what's going to happen is if I'm falling and I've collided with a bad guy, I'm going to bounce off of him. Bad guy's going to create a dead body. It's going to destroy himself. It's going to wait 1 second, and then the dead bad guy is going to disappear. So click play. Boom. Yay. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this. There's some kind of weird bug going on here. Oh, wait. I think I dropped more than one bad guy in there. That's what it was. I bet you that's what it was. Yeah, there's 2 of them. Sorry, I have to do this. This is a point of pride. I want to be able to do this. Sorry. Yeah. This is good game design right there. That was so much fun. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, very quickly, this is the last thing we're going to do is just add some background elements to make the game look a little bit more interesting. And what you're going to do is click anywhere you want in the layout. Just we're going to insert an object again. We're going to insert another tile map. And we're going to call this one like deco tiles maybe. So these are just our decorative tiles. And just click somewhere in this box to insert the tile map. There's our good old Wild West standard one, which we're going to replace by hitting this folder. And then we're going to use the same tile set we used before. Open. That's all we need to do. And now, on your tile map, select the tile map tab down here. Select whichever decorative tile you want and get the little pencil. Zoom in so it's easier for you guys to see. I can just drop a few decorative things here. Plenty of happy clouds. Literal happy clouds. Bob Ross would be proud. And click play. Now our game looks a little more interesting, but our player goes behind all of these objects for some reason. And the reason why is the Z order needs to be changed. So you have X and Y coordinates, and the Z is going kind of in and out of your screen, basically. So a very easy way to fix that in Construct is to unclick your tile map for one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do I get the clouds? Because I missed that one. I didn't see that.
You have the tile map? Yeah, you must have to build a level. Yeah, I would definitely say that. Okay, so what we're going to do just to, this is kind of a cheater way to make everything show up behind you, is select your deco tiles, tile map here in your project pane. And then over here on the left, you'll see the layer, and you just change that layer from characters to background. And now our character will go in front of it. Yay! So you have the beginnings of a functional game at this point. Obviously, you could improve the graphics. You could add more juice to it. We have about 15 minutes. If you wanted, I could show you really quick. Like, I could make a win state so that when you get to the end of the level, it'll show you some text that says you win. We could also do things like add invisible walls so that I can't accidentally leave the level. Well, actually, I know something. I'll do this real quick. Just make it so that if I fall off the world, it'll restart. So I'll die, basically. And Construct makes this really easy. I just add event, look at my player, And size and position is the category, and just say is outside layout. Click next. And I can add an action. And I don't want it to instantly restart when I fall off the screen, because that's going to be disorienting for the player. If you imagine Mario, like when he falls off the screen, and it plays a little song like boop-a-doop-a-doo, and then you restart, because that gets you ready for it. It's like, oh, I died. Give me a second to breathe. Okay, now I'll restart. So after he falls off, I'll do a system event, and again, I'll scroll down to time, and I'll make it wait. And again, 1 second is a long time in a video game. Make it wait 1 second, and then I'll select another system event to restart the layout, which is under the layout section. Next. So now if I fall off, it's going to wait 1 second and then restart. Now, of course, the problem there is I can still just wander off the side of the level, and it's going to do the same thing because as far as the program is concerned, I'm outside of the world, so it's going to restart. So we're going to use the tried and true developer trick, invisible walls. And I'm doing this very fast since we only have a few more minutes. Don't worry if you're not really following along right now. We'll call it barrier. This is just a sprite. And this time I'm actually just going to use the built-in tools. I'm going to bucket fill this with red. So I've got this big nasty red box. I'm going to change its origin point to bottom left. And I can very quickly resize it to the height of my level. I can control click, why is it not snapping? Yeah, I can control click, duplicate it, stretch it way out over the top of my level. And I'm going to go back over here and grab another one. And there it is. Put it over here. And then this is a really handy thing you can do. Right now we have these big red blocks, but we don't want the character to actually see those blocks. So I can click it, and over here in the properties pane, there is a little selection under properties, initially visible. I'm going to untick that. That makes these walls disappear whenever the game starts. And I can add a behavior to the wall. Just add the solid behavior. So it's solid just like our ground is. And now I can't leave the layout anymore. And you can use this invisible wall trick for a lot of things in 2D games. So I'll make a little win condition very quickly by adding some text. Call it win text. And you remember my dotted line here that shows me the size of the game window. So I'll put this kind of right in the middle. And I'll just say, you win. And I will increase the size of that text somehow. There it is. There we go. And I've got it right here in the middle. And right now, if I started the game, there's just this big U win in the sky. And if I start running, it's just going to go away. So we're going to use a couple of Construct tricks. I'm going to give it a behavior called anchor. And that just positions whatever object you have relative to the game window. So it always stays in the same spot. So it's actually really good if you're going to do like UI elements or a life counter or a score. So I'll add that anchor behavior. And just like before, I'm going to go down here and say that it's not initially visible. And I'm going to do another sprite, and we're just going to call it, I don't know, wind zone. Sounds like a sports show. Grab my bucket, and we'll fill this with green because it's a good thing. And change the origin to the bottom left. Sign. Bottom left. Got this great big green box, and I'll put it over here at the end of my level. I'll resize it. There we go. I could just make it a line. I could make it a big giant area. But this is what in game design is called a trigger. Generally, it means once you've crossed this area, make something happen. So in like scary games, like whenever you open the door and you walk through the threshold, something jumps out at you. You just triggered something generally. Like if you remember Resident Evil when the dogs jump out. So we're going to make this a wind trigger. And again, the same thing. We're going to make sure that it's not visible. And we're just going to add to our event sheet, add an event for the player. And say that whenever the player, on collision with another object, on collision with wind zone, we are going to add an action for the wind text, and we are going to go down to appearance and set visible. So initially we had it set as invisible. Whenever you cross this line, it's going to become visible. So I've got my bad guys. Bloop, bloop. I win. I know this is all like really simple stuff, but the point is like we put together a functional prototype of a game in about an hour and a half. If I wanted to, I could implement like a score counter pretty quickly by using like a global variable and just saying like whenever I stomp on a bad guy, increase that variable and adjust some text on the screen. And you can do it really easily just using these event systems right here. And this is just stuff that I can do. There are a lot of tutorials out there. And there's a free Udemy course on making a platform game with Construct. And the only limitations you have if you're using the free version is the number of events that you can use in your game. Like right here, you will see that I have 45 events left. And that's because I'm registered with Construct.net. If you're not, you only get 25 events. And Construct3, I'm not actually sure. Oops, I'm not actually sure what the limitations are. Let me see here. I know it limits the number of events you have. I just don't remember how many. But anyway, so those are some of the things you can do with Construct3 and also Piskel right there. If we had even more time, I could show you Beatbox, which if any of you were, beatbox.co. If any of you went to Global Game Jam, you probably saw this a lot. It's just a very simple music creation program. That's definitely something I'd look at because it's free. Again, it's web-based. But yeah, that in a nutshell, that is Construct. It's very easy to use. It's good for making prototypes. It's a good way to learn concepts of coding. Once you get more advanced with it, you can actually do things like I said, creating variables that you adjust by things that happen in the game. There are a lot more complex things you can do with it than what I showed you tonight. But that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming.